I'm going to press record. I have to do that at the beginning, otherwise, as soon as we get started, I'm not going to remember. So, yeah, so we'll record it, and there's a kind of a Lunchinators, I think it's like a private YouTube that Gina has put together to be able to share these recordings for those of you, for anyone who couldn't make it, or if you want to go back and watch it again. And so we have this week and next week with these folks from NEON. And then we have like one other scheduled one, and we have a lot of empty slots. And so it's a good opportunity for you to jump in and present to the rest of you. I would love to see what you have, or like hear your, if you have packages that you've gone over, you've learned recently, you want to teach us. It could even be something really simple. Like there is a lot of people on this mailing list, and it might be that, you know, a lot of people would benefit from intro to ggplot graphs or something like that. If you use ggplot graphs all the time, like you could do a whole session on intro to ggplot graphs, and like people would benefit from that. Or it could be, you know, something quite detailed as well. There's a diversity of people that each get different things from Lunchinators. So if you have a paper that have some questions about the analysis, you could kind of bring that to a paper that you're writing, you could bring that to us as well. So please, anything you have, let me know, and we'll fill up the schedule for this fall. Also, we call it Lunchinators. All of you have most of your cameras off, but feel free to eat lunch. Just make sure you have your microphone muted if that's the case. Also, feel free to jump in and ask questions at any time too. You can put them in the chat box, I'll look at that, or just kind of interrupt folks as needed. I think that's all. I'm gonna turn it over to Audrey. Actually, let me just stop and see if there's any general Lunchinators questions before I go on. All right, you can message me if you do have them. I'm gonna turn it over to Audrey, who will introduce our guest for today.
Great, thanks, Huldra. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to people who have been our regular Lunchinators folks, and welcome to the new people as well. We hope that you keep coming back. Huldra, I was just about to do this, but now I'm talking, so I'm going to ask you to do this. Could you make Donald and Arlene presenters so they have the ability to share their screens? Thank you.
They already have it. Yeah, they're good.
Oh, they have it. Good. Okay, cool. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Donald O'Leary and Arlene McGill. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Who are scientists and collaborators with the NEON project. And I'm gonna let them talk about exactly what that is. But I was introduced to NEON at ESA this year. They very generously selected me as a NEON Early Careers Scholar to learn about the NEON program. Originally, when ESA was going to be in person, there was going to be a big workshop, you know, an in-person workshop, skills workshop, that kind of thing. We wound up doing it virtually. It was still amazing. And as I was going through the workshop, I was like, oh my gosh, I know a ton of people at Iowa State that would be very interested in learning about these data sets and possibly incorporating them into their research, especially since a lot of us weren't able to get out into the field this year. And then, you know, as someone, if you're starting your PhD program or you're thinking about expanding your research, these data sets could be really valuable and really interesting. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I hope that you find the content as intellectually stimulating as I did.
Great, thank you so much, Audrey. Yeah, my name is Donald O'Leary. I'm a data science educator here with the National Ecological Observatory Network. I'm going to be diving into the data portal here in probably about 20 minutes or so. But first, we have Arlene, who's going to give us an overview of the NEON program and kind of a rundown of how our website works. So Arlene, are you ready to get started?
Yes. I'm going to share my screen, and I would like some confirmation about if you're seeing it.
Yep, I can see it well, and I can hear you clearly.
Perfect. So this is our website. It has a lot of things that are so interesting, but I'm going to be focusing on our resources. We're going to first see a little set of topics here on the data skills. First, we're going to see the data tutorials. They're developed by the Neon team to help you improve in your research. They're self-paced and are designed to help you on either single topics or a series to learn new techniques. So you can filter them out here by type. So we are going to first see the tutorials, which are single and short sets of composed of one lesson. They're, like I said, short, so you can go through them briefly. You'll have your objectives, which packages you need to install, and the introduction to the topic, as well as the self-paced, script-based tutorial. It's going to take you through the whole set of what you need to do with a little bit of explanation. And at the end of each tutorial, you're going to be able to download that R script for you to use. We'll also have a series of tutorials that are composed of different data types. These may take a little bit longer. They integrate different data types for you to work with. You're going to see the different overviews of it here in the right, and same as the tutorials, we're going to have your objectives, which packages you need to install, and at the end of it, they're also going to have an available link for you to download that lesson code. If anyone has any questions, please let me know as we go. We also have some teaching modules. Neon partners with Cubes to provide teaching modules that include lesson outlines, curated data sets, and data skill activities to teach essential data skills and ecological concepts. So as graduate students, you may use them as an instruction aid, or you can use them as practice or learning material on your own research. Some of those lessons will include presentations, supporting documents such as presentations, teaching modules, materials for your students, as well as some of them will also be carrying our scripts for you to use to analyze some of the data. Some of our collaborators within the CUBES webpage have made adaptations of those lessons for their own classes and lessons. So this is freely available for anyone to use. We also have, as a resource, the workshops such as this. There you can see past workshops that have been hosted by Neon and their collaborators, so you can go through them. They'll have the activities and materials that were used for those workshops, so if you weren't able to attend, you can review them and be able to work them as a self-guided tutorials as well. You can also view our upcoming events. You can filter them as well as meetings, seminars, workshops. So there you have a lot of different opportunities to learn more about Neon. Moving up, we have also a YouTube channel called the Neon Science. There you can we have a lot of videos. Some of them will highlight workshops and meetings such as this one, and you can go over them, see them, even though if you couldn't participate from them. We have how to use our data, instances where other researchers have used our data, and as well as an overview of our Neon sites, so you can go through them and see how our sites look like. Another thing that I wanted to highlight here was the code resources. So I know that we want to focus ourselves on the use of coding resources. So Neon offers a wide variety of those resources. Most of them are stored in our GitHub organization page. there you can find things such as the Neon Utilities package, which Donald's going to talk more about it in the next section. The courses, the code resources are provided in 3 tiers. The community contributed code, which is reviewed to make it publicly available, and it always involves Neon data and some of other data that other collaborators will include. Tier 2 is certified code by Neon. This goes through review and ensures that it will work without any errors. And the tier 3 is going to be Neon production code. This is used for processing data pipelines and generating our data products. So you can go through them, be able to identify which tier it goes with, and once you decide that you want to use that resources, this is going to tell you who the contributor was, and it will also take you to the GitHub repository. It's going to tell you which data product was used and the data product IDs that also Donna is going to talk more about later. If you want to know where our data was collected, you want to see all of our data field sites, you can go through the field sites map. Here you're going to either can see it by either from a list or in a map. This map is going to let you see which parts of the United States we have our Neon site field sites located. You can click on it and you'll see the exact location of that field site. And if you want to know more about that site, you can click on the name. You'll see where the towers are located, where we do our observational sampling. You can browse the data collected at that particular site, as well as other sites near that domain, and characteristics such as geology, vegetation, information about our site host. Another thing that I wanted to show you as well, and this is where you can find more information about how our community uses Neon data, especially grad students and research labs. So this is the observatory blog. It houses articles on data skills and collaborations between organizations that make our data products available through them. You have a wide variety of topics here. You can see research and publications made by other scientists and grad students where they highlight how they use our data, what they found. We even have we've been highlighting here things just such as new descriptions, new species descriptions, how forest productivity functions, and other types of data, or other types of research that people have done using our data, as well as how to take advantage of some of our data skills and see how other people have been using it. For example, we have partnered with other institutions to make our data available throughout them. We have news on our observatory, how information on our domains, and basically it's a really good source of information on how people are using our data. Do I have any questions? Do anyone want to see anything else?
That's great. Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Arlene. That was a great overview of some of our resources that we have on the website there. And of course, if folks have follow-up questions, we'll always be available via email or anything like that. I am grateful that I have a bit more time than I was planning on, so I'll be able to do a really deep discussion about our data products as we go into them. So let me start to share my screen here, and we can start talking about data. All right, folks, can you see my screen? Hear me okay? Cool, thanks, Haldra. I see your thumbs up. Excellent. All right, so Arlene gave an overview of some of our resources we have and kind of some of these main tabs on our website. I'm going to take us to the data portal now. So first thing I'm going to do, we're here at neonscience.org on our main webpage. And let's see, since this is being recorded, I guess it's not essential if you follow along, but if you do want to follow along, that's great, especially if you have two screens or can do a split screen with Zoom and you know, Google Chrome or whatever on the other side of the screen, that would be awesome. So we can just follow along here. So there's kind of our main navigation along this top bar here, but then the very top underneath the yellow kind of preview bar, we have three options here. Our biorepository, which is hosted at Arizona State University, where we send a lot of our samples, especially our invertebrates and vegetation clippings and stuff like that. You can access those if you are interested for your own research. It's kind of like an herbarium, and I don't know what the equivalent of an herbarium is for bugs, but I'm sure there's a word for that. But you can access those resources there. I'm going to talk more about the ones and zeros, talk about our data. So I'll click on the data portal here on this link. And there is quite a bit of information here. So let me give an overview of the overall structure of our data portal. Then we'll start talking about the Explore Data Products page where you can start to interact with the individual data products. And finally, we're going to download a data product, or maybe two if we have time. And I'm going to go in great detail over the, I guess, physical structure of our data, how they're delivered to you from the data portal. Now, I know this is a group for folks who are interested in R. First of all, I love the Luncheonator's name, using the capital R on the end as if it was like an R package is a great touch. I'm very impressed. We're not going to be using R a whole lot today, as was mentioned before. So again, if you had trouble loading packages, that's going to be fine. We can help you troubleshoot that later before our next Friday session. But what I really want to do today is set up, there's quite a bit of setup before you can start diving into R and using Neon data in our studio. But I'm also going to show you all kind of the before and after of why you would want to use R to manipulate some of our data and automate quite a bit of this processing. So I think the way that the data are delivered from our website are very complex and maybe a little arduous. It's great for some things, but it's harder for analysis. So I'm going to set up the importance for why we would use R, and the next Friday we'll really dive into using R. So sorry for the delay. This is kind of a teaser, but I promise we're going to get there. Okay, so that's my my verbal overview here. Let's talk about the data portal webpage here. First of all, we have a little warning that pops up here in the very bottom. It says Neon resumed limited operations beginning May 18th. So just like everything else, we were very much affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a link. It says to please check updates here. So if you click on that, it'll actually take you back to the main Neon Science home page. And there's a link to this also at the bottom of our homepage. This is our observatory status page. So I bring this up because it's very timely. There is information in here about every one of our sites, domain offices, domains in general, and what's going on with them relevant to COVID-19. So this is updated weekly by our leadership, has great detailed information about it, but this is going to be one place to check to see if they're even collecting the data of interest at your site that you may be interested in working on. So much like our wonderful country, our field sites are diverse and kind of spread out all over the continent. And of course, the COVID-19 situation is very different in all of those places. So I want to really heavily, I guess, highlight this, that 2020, probably 2021 are going to have some substantial holes in our data sets. That's something we sacrifice in the name of safety for all of our field staff and headquarters staff. So nothing we can do to get around that. I just want to warn you about that before you, you know, propose this to your dissertation committee and all of a sudden find out you don't have the data you expected to see. Okay, so we talked about that warning there. Talk more about the data portal overview page. Some navigation bar up here at the top, kind of talking about data. If you are a programmer, especially if you like to use Python or the command line or something, take a look here to read about our API. This is a very universally accessible way to ping our servers and request data from our servers. So if you know what an API is, probably don't have to go into that too much. If you don't, it's an awesome tool. What we'll be talking about next Friday is kind of an API wrapper, or it's like a very convenient R package that handles a lot of the API request into and out of R. So we kind of really simplify this process in R. We have our resources here too. This first resource I want to point out is our document library. So I'm going to navigate to that here quickly. This is your archive for every detail about Neon operations. We have information here about our algorithms. So the algorithm theoretical basis documents, or ATBDs, are the documents that describe how we convert our instrument data into data products. So again, we have three main collection modes. There's our instruments, that is kind of like temperature sensors, wind speed anemometers, things like that. We have our observations, which I like to think of as our boots on the ground. Those are our experts in the field going out identifying birds and plants and taking clippings and collecting soil, stuff like that. And then we have our airborne observation platform, which is the remote sensing side of things. I will show my bias here. I'm a total remote sensing nerd. That was really what my PhD was focused on. So if folks are interested in remote sensing, I'm not going to go into it too much in this workshop, but I will be happy to answer every single question about that. I love talking about our AOP products. So algorithm is mostly about our IS, or instrumented systems. We have our data product users, which are mostly about our OS, or observed system. So any collections that we make. I believe the algorithms also have some information about our AOP data, because a lot of those processing pipelines are pretty automated. We have our science designs. This is really helpful if you want to better understand the spatial design of our observatory, how we design the sampling routines and timing. There's information in there about that. Our site characterization reports are great if you want to learn more about a particular site, how it was selected, what the construction process was like, all sorts of information about that. If you're into soils, we have these soil characterization summaries. We also have the megapit information up here under the resources tab. Those are both really valuable information about our soils data products. Spatial data information, there's another place to access this on our main website. It's handy. And then what was the last one I wanted to talk about? I think it's actually here in science designs. There's kind of information about the overall observatory design. I'm going to get really sidetracked if I try to go into that. But anyway, there's more great information in there. Our lab protocols are also very useful if you do a lot of lab analysis. You can either compare those with what you already do, or just steal them if you want. They're free and openly available. You're welcome to use our protocols in any of your research. Please just give us a citation. So the one caveat I want to give about our documents is I'm going to say observatory design. There it is. I searched this quite a lot. So if you use the search function in our document library, you are likely to get old documents. This is a bug, not a feature. I guess it's kind of a feature if you want, but when you're looking at these different documents, you'll see, first of all, our documents have what I think are fairly awful names. They're not very descriptive. That will be updated here in the near future. So hopefully it'll be a little more easy to read, easy to understand. But right underneath that, it shows the file path to where this document is located. You'll notice that some of them have a folder called past versions. We do have a rigorous versioning routine for these documents. You can see the version is the suffix here, version A. It'll also say revision number right on the document. But just be careful that if you're searching for a document, you don't accidentally end up in this past versions folder. If you find a document that's in that past versions folder, just search for the document code and try to make sure you get the most recent one. So that is my warning about our document library. I think it's mostly pretty good. has great information, but it's difficult to navigate, and there's no Dewey Decimal System to help you orient. So that can be kind of a challenge. I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, I'm going to backtrack back here to the main Neon data portal. Let's look at a couple of these tabs here. I already talked about the API. I think that's helpful. Data portal news is great if you want to learn about our latest data products, how they're getting updated, stuff like that. If you have a question, we honestly love to get questions from researchers. It's never a bother. And we actually have a really good system to forward and kind of route the question to the appropriate person. So I can speak on behalf of folks here at headquarters. I'm here in Boulder. It's a great place to be, but I work in an office with no windows. I hardly ever get out into the field. So I'm always super jazzed to hear from people who are doing research out there in the wild. So always happy to hear from you. Please either read the FAQ or give us a shout. There's a contact us form at the bottom of every one of these pages. So yeah, don't be shy. What else? Working with Neon data, this will kind of direct you to some of those resources that Arlene oriented you to just a little bit ago. This tab on data quality, I think, is awesome. Probably the #1 thing that blew me away when I joined Neon was how rigorous our QA/QC process is. I'll go into that a bit more once we actually start looking at data here in about 15 minutes. But there is great information about the rigor with which we quality control these data. Finally, let's actually get into the data. So there's this tab here, Explore Data Products. I'm going to click on that and take us to our Explore Data Products page. So this is your graphical user interface, or we like to say GUI, your GUI interface, your portal for accessing Neon data. And I think this is the easiest and most straightforward way to access the data. There are also a bunch of places where this links to relevant information and documentation. So I think this is a great way to get familiar with Neon data. I don't think it's the best way to access the data if you're actually using them for science grade research. I would point you to the API, Neon Utilities R package, which we'll talk about next week. But this is the best way to orient to it. And it also will give you the appropriate information on, what are the important factors to consider when you're trying to download Neon data. You're going to need to keep things in mind like the data product ID, which we'll go over, date ranges, sites availability, things like that. So this is an awesome way to get familiar with all of those different kind of filters, if you will, to narrow down your API request to just the data product you're interested in. And once you get familiar with all of these steps here through the GUI, then it will make the whole process of using our R package, making API requests, it'll make all of that so much easier. So again, the purpose of the next 20 minutes is to get you familiar with kind of the data download options. And then we'll really be able to hit the ground running next week when we take this into RStudio. Okay, so what are some important features of this web page? Oh, first of all, I accidentally have a filter on here already. Whenever I rejoin or come back to this page, it saves your previous search results. So that's a feature, but I needed to clear that out to get everyone on the same page. So this is what it should look like when you come to it for the first time. We have this whole filter bar on the left. Anyone who's ever done online shopping knows what this is about. But instead of sizes and colors, we break things down by if data are available or not. We have this visualizations section where this is great if you can see. It'd be a challenge if you use a screen reader. But we do have kind of time series preview and some airborne imagery preview here if you want to take a quick look at the data before you actually start to download it. You can break things up by our science team. So I already described that our airborne observation platform is kind of our remote sensing platform. And then we have our instrument systems and our observed systems. But we break those down one step further into aquatic and terrestrial sites. Of course, we don't collect things like water chemistry at our terrestrial desert sites because there's not a whole lot of water to collect there. So we have just an unlimited amount of acronyms here at Neon. But we call these AOP, AIS, AOS, TIS, and TOS. If you start working with Neon Data more, you'll become very familiar with those acronyms. You can search by state if that's your pixel size of interest. You can search by individual sites. You can search by different ecoclimatic domains, or you can just search by overall theme. So these themes are not a one-to-one. A data product can be cross-listed in one or more of these themes. So they are not exclusive, but I think it's a great way to just kind of take a look at our data products to see what's available. I am, as I mentioned, kind of a data scientist earlier. I love data in the most kind of explicit and granular form possible. So I want to point you all to this data product catalog. So right under Explore Data Products, it says 181 products available from 81 sites. I'm going to download this list as a comma-separated values sheet. Open this up in Excel so you can see why you might be interested in downloading this sheet and what it can do for you. So I need to adjust these just a little bit. I'm going to zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to move these so you can see that. Okay, so this sheet that I just downloaded is the full data product catalog, and it has quite a bit of useful information in here. First of all, we have the data product ID in column A. This is a unique code for each one of our data products. And much like our list of acronyms, you'll become more familiar with the data product ID if you start to work with Neon Data, especially if there's something really specific you're interested in. So the data product ID has 3 sections to it. Just to go over really quickly, first of all is the letters DP and then an integer from 1 through 4. This is just our general data product prefix. And then the 1 through 4 is telling you what level of data product it is. There's a great video on YouTube that talks about our data pipeline, but in brief, we have 4 levels of data products. Level 1 is kind of the most raw form of data. It's not quite the raw ones and zeros that are coming off of our instruments, but it's the minimally calibrated and adjusted and quality controlled data set. So things like wind speed and direction, air temperature, those come as level 1 data products. If we process those data products into kind of a more complex product, like many of our remote sensing data products go from raw observations to kind of 1 kilometer tiles, and that takes some processing. Or we might derive a digital elevation model from a LiDAR point cloud. So that would be a higher level of processing. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's not super critical, but it's nice to understand what those 4 levels of data products are. The next 5 digits separated by periods here are the unique code for that data product. So really these 5 digits are the most unique part. And then the last 3 digits are, again, like our documents, this is a revision number. We only change this if for some reason the data product is no longer compatible with the previous version of the data product. Every once in a while, we change the variables that we're looking at. One example that comes to mind is our pathogen data. So we actually changed the types of pathogens we're looking at. We're no longer researching hantavirus so much because it seems like hantavirus remains a very low prevalence disease in our continent. We're starting to look more at Lyme disease and Lyme disease comorbidities. So that data product is getting a revision here really soon. Keep in mind that we sometimes reprocess data and might improve our QA/QC algorithms, reprocess the data and publish them again. That will not result in a change to this revision number, but you will have a different processing date on the data product. So keep that in mind. If you say start doing some research now and maybe need to come back to it in a couple of years, it's maybe worthwhile reviewing the current revision number and reading any updates that have happened to that data product. So this level column B is the same integer that we'll have after the letters DP and the product ID. The name of the data product is kind of the short name of it. The URL will actually take you to a data product overview page. I'll show you what that looks like here soon. First and last, latest available dates for the data product. This is across the entire observatory. This is not necessarily for your site of interest. So keep that in mind, that these dates are not necessarily representative of where you want to find that data product. Our science team, I already described what these mean. And then our description, this is kind of a long form description of what's going on in this data product. Okay, I thought I heard maybe someone in the background here. Does someone have a question or need to interject? All right, cool, let's keep on trucking. All right, so this data product catalog, I think is really helpful if you want to go in here and, Control F for whatever particular thing you're interested in. You can do it that way. I'm not going to save this. Or you can just go into the search bar here in the Explore Data Products page. So let's see, a data product we often take a look at is called photosynthetically active radiation. So for short, we just call that PAR. So if you enter PAR into the search bar here, you'll notice some changes in the site. We have this filtered products option here pop up, and that will be the same data product catalog we were looking at, but just filtered down to anything that matches PAR. The letters PAR are actually pretty common, so most of our data products hit that, but it will rank this data product to the very top because it seems to be the most relevant. So let's take a look at this PAR data product. Say this is the one we're interested in. First of all, there is a link in the name here. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. This will link to the data product overview page. This is the same URL which was shown in that Excel spreadsheet that I was just taking a look at there. And this has all types of great information about this data product. So first of all, it'll highlight the product ID because that's necessary for just about everything we do with these data products. It gives a description and an abstract about these data. There are links to all of the relevant documentation for this data product. Again, these document names are awful, but this will cover everything from the algorithm theoretical basis document to some of the site design, where and why it's situated on the tower, etc. And then at the bottom, this is something really important that I wanted to point out. This is our issue log. So much like the data portal news page we were looking at earlier and the observatory status page, the issue log describes any problems that we might have identified regarding this particular data product. It'll say, what's going on, when and why. So this top issue says sensor malfunction as evidenced by positive nighttime PAR. Well, you shouldn't have any photosynthetically active radiation, which is basically sunlight, at night. So our QA team identified there were some problems for this one location in particular, Ordway Swisher Biological Station in North Florida. It's at the tower top, so it actually describes that there was this one specific sensor was having this problem, and the date range for which they identified that issue. Again, if you're doing science grade research with these data, please take a look at our issue log. We want to make sure that you have the best data possible. Okay, that is all I wanted to talk about for the data product overview page. Let's go back to this view here. There's a few other things we can take a look at. There's this visualization option here. You can click on the time series viewer, take a look at that if you're interested. There's a couple other ways we can view the data, but to do that, first I'm going to click on this download data button. This is not quite like a buy it now, but this will take you into a whole new view, a whole new perspective to view this data for. So we have, again, kind of some overview information about this, but what this view allows you to do is get kind of a more granular perspective on when and where are these data available. So to do that, there's this option down in the bottom right here. It says view by, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Maybe it's a little easier for folks to see. So currently we're viewing summary. This is information for the entire observatory. The key here is that blue boxes are months for which this data product is available, and gray boxes are months for which there is no data available for this data product. So across all sites, it seems like PAR goes back to September 2013. That's pretty good. But what I like to do is view by site. When you view by site, it'll give you a different perspective here. So you can see every one of our sites, and then the blue boxes indicating that the PAR is available for that site. Let's just click on Abby at the very top here. If you click on one of these rows, it'll highlight the whole row. And then you can use these little sliders to start to zoom in on just the site months that you're interested in. So all of NEON data are delivered by month. This can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective. I'm just going to zoom in on a couple of months here in 2019 to download those data. So you'll see as I'm adjusting my download options, I'm getting an estimated size up here in the top right corner. That's good for just figuring out how much data that you're going to download. You can select multiple sites here if you want, and it'll focus on the same date range. You can also specify your date range up here in the date range filters. So I'm just going to grab a couple of months here, keep on going. The next question it'll prompt you for is, do you want to include documentation? So these are those documents that I pointed out in the data product overview page. I always like to take a look at our documentation. It doesn't hurt to download a couple of PDFs, so I include those. And then it'll ask if you want the basic or expanded package. The basic includes all of the QA'd data and relevant information about the data set, but I like to download the expanded package because the expanded package always gives you like a lot more information about the QA flags and processes. So the expanded data set is usually about 3 times bigger than the basic data set because we have so many QA QC flags. Last thing it's going to prompt you for is to agree to our data usage and citation policies. If you use our data, please cite them. You take a look at that link there. It gives you great detailed information on how to cite these data. And then finally, it'll give you kind of a summary of your download. And you can go ahead and click the button and just download it from there. So this, I have, what, maybe 5-6 more minutes here. I'm going to just quickly walk you through what our data look like and hopefully impress upon you the value of what we can do in R to automate some of this, this stuff for us. So it downloads a zip file. We can open that zip file, take a look in there, and I will go through these different files that we have here and describe what's going on. So these PDFs, these 5 PDFs are the relevant documentation for this data product. That's easy. And then for each one of our months that we downloaded, there's a separate zip file contained within this zip file. So we have nested zip files here. I'm going to expand one of these to take a look inside. And we have quite a few more files that are contained within this zip file here. A few I want to point out. I'll start from the bottom, just trying to make this a little easier to see. Okay, so we have all these ones at the top here. These are the actual data files. And I'll go into that in a minute because I think some of these metadata files would be useful to understand what's going on there. There's one XML file that's downloaded. This is an EML metadata file. If you're familiar with EML, then you know what this is. If you're not, it's kind of outside the scope of this talk right now to talk about that, but EML is like a universal metadata language. It's a type of markup that contains a lot of great information. There is also a README file in here. In this README file, it goes over all sorts of things. It gives your description and abstract of the data product, what is contained in this download, which we were just looking at earlier. The file naming conventions is really helpful because you can understand why we have such kind of long, complicated file names. And it goes over several other important things, like how these data were derived, if these data are based on other data products, like if they're a higher level data product that require inputs of wind speed, relative humidity, and air temperature, it'll tell you which data products this is predicated on, so you can understand if you need to go take a look at those. There is this variables file, which I find to be very interesting and helpful. If you open this up, you'll see that there's a few columns here, and what this really does is it describes all of the variables that are reported in this product. So it'll say what table it's coming from. We have 1 minute and 30-minute averages for this data product, and I'll show you where those are. The name of the field, So something like par mean, it'll tell you, okay, this is the arithmetic mean of the par over that averaging interval. It'll tell you the units for that. I'm sure everyone here would have guessed that our units are micromoles per square meter per second. I think it's essentially the number of electrons that are hitting the sensor per unit area. And it'll tell you if these numbers were rounded or not, and if they occur in the basic or expanded package. So you can see most of the expanded package variables are these QM, kind of quality metrics flags. And so you can read more information about the different variables that are being reported in here. The last table before we get to the data that I want to talk about is the sensor positions table. So this is really helpful because for especially our instrumented systems data products, we have quite a few different positions where they can take place. I'm going to update my virtual background here really quickly so we can take a look at what I'm talking about. So this tower I have now behind me has several boom arms that are coming off of it. So on each one of those arms, we have one of these PAR sensors. And at the top of the tower, we have two PAR sensors, one pointed up, one pointed down, so we can measure net radiation. So when we're looking at horizontal and vertical position, it depends on the type of sensor, what these numbers really mean. But before the period is the horizontal position. These are all 0 because they're on the tower, which is our 0 horizontal position. And then the vertical position is describing which boom or which level of the tower is this instrument actually located on. These X, Y, Z positions are then reported in these columns, J through L, for the X, Y, and Z offset. So the Z offset is height above the ground, and you can see that for Abbey Road, we go from, not Abbey Road, for Abbey, we go from almost a meter off the ground to about 19 meters off the ground for where these sensors are located. All right, let's take a look at the data tables before we run out of time here. So each one of these tables listed in these CSVs are for 1 minute or 30-minute averaging periods. And then they also show the vertical position. So this is vertical position 10. These are vertical position 40 and 50. You can read about that in the README file to figure out the naming convention for those. So once you actually get to the data tables, this is where you have the data that you're probably hoping to see. You have, the timestamp, what was the mean par for that timestamp. We have a bunch of variables here that talk about, did it pass or fail the different quality control tests. And so this is what we'll really get into next week once we start working with these data. But I'm not going to explore that too much for the moment. What I really wanted to impress upon you was that we downloaded 3 site months worth of data, and all of a sudden we have like 10 data tables for this 1 month, and then there's a bunch of metadata files, and we have a bunch of these zip files. And so to combine all of these files together into a single table for us to analyze would be a huge pain. And that's what we're going to focus on next week, is how can we use our API and some pre-designed R packages to make this process a whole lot simpler so that you can just write a single line in R and all of a sudden get a single data table for you to analyze across multiple sites and months in a nice handy data frame. So that is all I have for now. I am very close to running out of time. I will be happy to stick around and help people troubleshoot, install, or questions if they have. I know people have classes to get to, but it seems like you work on kind of a 10-minute after thing there at Iowa State, which is awesome. The school I went to did that. It was really helpful. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed your lunch, and I'll be happy to field any questions right now, or just bid you adieu and hopefully see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey.
Do any of you have questions? Yeah, I think it'll be great next week to be able to dig into the data and now that you have the lay of the land, be able to kind of see what we can do with data. So I'm excited. So barring any questions, it looks like I think there's a few of you who might have had a few of us, at least, at least Kevin and I, had some issues installing all the packages, especially I think there's one at Neon that was maybe a little more problematic. If any of you, did anyone else have that same problem? Well, maybe you can just listen on if, in case you will, in case you run into it. Do you want, Kevin, are you still here? Do you want to kind of mention again what your problem was?
So mine, I mean, it potentially is a systemic issue actually, because I think it came up before with a different package I was trying to install. So I might try to troubleshoot a little bit more. I did some switching between like, working on different computers and having some weird overlap in directories. So I might troubleshoot by myself on that for a while and before kind of taking everyone's time. So.
Okay.
Cool. I'll go ahead and ask because I just tried. I'm Phil Dixon. I'm over in the stats department, work a lot with ecologists. So this is wonderful. What R versions do you guys support? Because I've actually got an older version on my laptop, and I know R just updated to 4.0, which is a massive change. And it's fussing that GeoNeon's not available for 3.6.2.
Okay, that is actually kind of concerning to hear because I thought GeoNeon was back compatible to 3.4 and later. So
is it capital N or lowercase n or a dot?
For GeoNeon?
Yeah.
Oh, here's the problem. First of all, thanks for the question, Phil. I love having hardcore statisticians in this world of ecology. So glad that you're here. GeoNeon is not an R CRAN certified package. So GeoNeon is a package that's in development and it's hosted on our GitHub account. So there is no install.packages option for GeoNeon. You'll have to use the DevTools command. So
tools install GitHub. Okay.
Aldra,
Aldra just linked it.
Yeah.
Yes. This is also shown on our kind of workshop website or webpage. There are some copy paste instructions there. So if you don't have DevTools, you'll have a problem running that line. But
no, I've got DevTools.
Perfect.
I've got to go to GitHub for all sorts of things.
Yeah, cool. All right, so you understand.
Okay, no, that triggered. So it's downloading.
Perfect. And
it's installing, but at least I can get to it. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, you're welcome. And regarding the point for the update to R 4.0, huge upgrade. And from what I understand, one of my friends who works using a screen reader said that now R is much more screen reader compatible. So that's a huge leap forward for accessibility. I'm very happy to see that. In terms of our code and our packages, we haven't really found all that much difference when it comes to what we do. There is a command to set, what is it? Strings as factors.
Yes, that's one of the major operational differences.
Yes, so yeah, now I think we still have that line in many of our tutorials. It's now just redundant. So
yes.
For folks on older versions of R, it should still work if you run that line. If you're on 4.0, it should basically just ignore it, or that's already the default option. So,
right.
Yeah.
When I teach, my default is always use as.is equals true, which is a local. Don't convert the strings to factors. And you're right. Now it's no longer necessary. And I went, hurrah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it had to compile it, but I had no problem compiling on the Windows laptop. So.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Phil. And yeah, the compilation is usually the biggest tripping hazard. I'll give you one other point of contention, I guess, with GeoNeon is that many of those functions that GeoNeon uses makes an individual API call for every single data point. So it can just be very slow, but I don't know of too many kind of showstopper problems with that package. So yeah, please let us know if you run into anything. It sounds like you're actually quite well versed in troubleshooting. So we would appreciate an error report if you come up with one.
So what's your spatial database? Is it going to Google Maps or Open Maps? Because those have limits on the number of requests per minute for a free account.
That's a good question. So as far as I know, all of our API requests hit Neon servers directly. We do have some rate limiting. It's not a whole lot. Most people don't notice it, but there's an option to sign up for an account here at Neon through the data portal. And once you get that account, you can download an API token, it's called. If you add that token into your API request, it'll bypass the rate limiting. So there is a tutorial. Let me see if I didn't put that on the web page, I will. I'll add it. Yeah, I don't see it there. I'll write myself a note to include that, but maybe I can just pull up that API tutorial.
Yeah, that token system is like a lot of spatial data archives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is actually stuff that was pretty far over my head until just a couple of months ago. But Claire Lunch is our lead developer, and she's a total genius. So I just added a link in the chat window, and this will walk you through how to sign up for an account, get one of those tokens, and bypass that rate limiting. And I'll add that to the web page as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Phil. Great questions.
I was able to get GeoNeon installed. I had an issue with data.table, and I had to reinstall that, and then tried to install GeoNeon, and it worked out fine. So I think that, yeah, hopefully we can all kind of resolve our little individual problems and look go smoothly before next week.
Yeah, and the fact that you're recording these is awesome too, because it is a total showstopper if you can't get these packages loaded and follow along. But if they can do that after the fact, then that'll be helpful anyway.
Yeah. Any questions from anyone else before we finish up? Wonderful. Well, thank you all for presenting, and Arlene and Donald. Wait, Donald, right?
Yep.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was great, and we look forward to next week.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having us. We'll see you next week. Enjoy your holiday weekend.
Oh, thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.